Hello, and welcome to Know Before You Go, a program of the Dominican Central Province of St. Albert the Great that allows us to take a look ahead at the upcoming weekend's readings. I am Father Jim Marchionda, coming to you once again from St. Pius Priory in Chicago. And I am thrilled to celebrate with you the readings for the feast of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Today we celebrate the Holy Family. We celebrate it every year on the Sunday after Christmas. And today we celebrate not only the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, but we celebrate our holy families. We celebrate your holy families. And we celebrate the fact that no matter the challenges that face us, we are all expected to be holy, not only individually, but together. We are expected to be holy as a family and to give witness to that holiness by our love for one another and by the multitude of ways in which that love expresses itself even outside of ourselves and broadens and enlarges the love of God in the world. We celebrate the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, but we celebrate you and your family and how holy you are and are invited to remain. The readings that are given to us for this feast are terrific. The first one comes from the first book of Samuel. The second reading from the first letter of John, and the gospel reading from St. Luke. Of course, as always, the first reading from 1 Samuel and Luke's gospel go together. And the second reading will give us a great challenge in the end. The first reading is about the birth of Samuel, the prophet Samuel. Now, Samuel's mother, Hannah, had prayed for a child and prayed for a child. And when she became pregnant, before he was even born, she dedicated Samuel to God. She gave him to God because God had answered her prayer in fulfilling her desire to have a son. It's a rather marvelous story. She takes him to the temple early in his life when he was just a young thing, and she gives him to God. Imagine that. Imagine the holiness that she bestowed on him in her generosity. Imagine the life that he was called to live and the vocation he was called to live because of what his mother did in his name. She gave him up. Her husband gave him up. He gave up maybe many things natural in life to fulfill his call. In the Gospel of Luke, we hear the very familiar story of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph going to Jerusalem for the feast when he was 12 years old, and how he lagged behind as they returned home. And it took them a couple of days to realize he wasn't in their company. And so they go back to Jerusalem and they find him in the temple. They're frantic. And Mary says, "How could you do this to us?" And Jesus' response is, "Did you not know I must be in my Father's house? Did you not know that this is where I belong?" He then went with them. They returned home, and she held these things in her heart. And he obeyed them. But this was a terrific lesson for Mary and Joseph. That just as Hannah had given Samuel to God, Mary and Joseph realized on this day that their son, if they hadn't realized it before, belonged to something far larger than just them. Though they were a holy family, the holiness of that family included the divine, included God. Mary and Joseph, just like Hannah, learned to let go of their son and to let him be what he was called and destined to be. I believe that that might be a very subtle lesson to us in this Holy Family year. Whenever I've thought of the Holy Family in the past, I've thought of all the ways in which we should try to be more holy with one another and show that holiness to the world. Today, we are receiving a lesson that says maybe a good part of holiness is letting go of control of one another. Maybe letting go as Hannah let go, and having to let go as Joseph and Mary learned to let go when he was only 12 is a lesson for us this year. No doubt we all love one another. Don't you love all the members of your family? Even the ones that drive you crazy? Don't you still love them and struggle to love them? That's what we're all called to do. But maybe we're also called to let go of the things that drive us crazy. Maybe we're called to allow the people in our lives to live their lives as God has inspired them to do, and not as we think we are supposed to tell them to do. This year's Holy Family has given me a new lesson. That lesson is letting go. Hannah did it. Mary and Joseph found their way to having to do it because of Luke's gospel. And maybe in the second letter of John that we hear today, where Jesus says we are children of God ourselves. Why? We are children of God because we believe in the Christ and because we love one another. Maybe our lesson today of loving one another is letting go and letting one another live the lives that God calls them to be. I think that's a big challenge. Letting go is always a big challenge, isn't it? And especially when we know what's right for everybody else in our lives, it's a big challenge for us to let go. There's a little quote that I think is important for us from Meister Eckhart's Book of the Heart that says, "We should know that no one in this life has learned to let go who could not learn to let go even more." My friends, in order to get along with one another, we do have to grant each other space, don't we? And when we don't, sometimes we break down in our love for one another. Today's feast of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and the Holy Family that is yours, invites us in our love for one another to grant enough space for each other to grow in the Lord the way the Lord wants us to grow. God bless you in loving each other that much.